The applause stung. Sharp, echoing claps bouncing off the auditorium walls. A brutal symphony dedicated to my brother, Ryan. Ryan, who'd just tripped on stage during the regional spelling bee. Tripped, mind you, not actually misspelled anything yet. Dad, crimson-faced but beaming, yelled, "He almost had it, folks! He almost had it!" Mom squeezed his arm, her smile radiant. "He tries so hard, Stephen. That's all that matters." I sat stiffly in my chair, a constellation of A's burning a hole in my report card tucked inside my jacket. Another award ceremony, another reminder that my accomplishments were background noise in the endless opera of Ryan's struggles. My name is Jason. Or it was. Now, looking back, I see that Jason died a little bit every time they praised Ryan for simply showing up. Dad was a bank manager, obsessed with climbing the corporate ladder. He wore a tie to every single event, including weekend barbeques. I hated those barbeques, the way he'd size up my friends like potential investments, grilling them about their parents' jobs, their future prospects. He valued people based on their net worth, and it was clear I wasn't generating enough dividends. Mom, the elementary school teacher, was a master of performative sweetness. She baked cookies for the whole damn school, volunteered for every PTA event, but at home, she was a drill sergeant obsessed with impossible standards. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" Her mantra, a poisoned barb lodging deeper with each repetition. Ryan. He was everything I wasn't. Clumsy, easily distracted, and utterly devoid of ambition. Yet, he was showered with affection. His every stumble excused, every minor victory celebrated as a triumph of the human spirit. When I got into the University of California, San Diego, with a scholarship for a pre-med program, the silence was deafening. The celebratory dinner was all about Ryan's failing grades, his inability to focus, his unique learning style. My acceptance letter vanished from the fridge within days. Ryan's JV baseball participation certificate hung there for 3 years. That's when the burning started. A slow, simmering anger that I kept banked down, trying to ignore it, trying to prove them wrong. But it festered, a constant reminder that I would never be good enough, never be him. I needed out. So, the day after graduation, I walked into the nearest recruiting office and signed up for the Army. Not patriotism, not a burning desire to serve. Just escape. A desperate need to breathe free of the suffocating expectations and the suffocating love they poured onto Ryan while ignoring me. I was a ghost in my own home, and I needed to find a place where I could finally exist. The Afghan sun beat down on my face, a relentless fire that mirrored the one burning inside me. Combat medic. 4 years. 2 deployments. The heat, the sand, the constant threat. It was hell. But it was my hell. I saw things no 20-year-old should ever see. Lost limbs, shattered bodies, the vacant stare of boys whose innocence had been stolen. The screams. God, the screams still echoed in my sleep. But I was good at my job. Focused. I could keep a man alive for those precious few minutes until the chopper arrived. Those minutes that could mean the difference between life and death. Combat clarifies things. You know who's on your side, who isn't. Your mission is clear. Success is measurable. There were no mind games, no shifting expectations, no golden child to compete with. Just me, my training, and the guys who depended on me. I came back with a bum knee, a souvenir from a medevac under fire. A stupid, meaningless injury. I landed wrong, twisted my knee. Nothing heroic, just pain. And the memories were the worst. The faces of the dying, the smell of burning flesh, the weight of responsibility. They haunted me. My parents barely acknowledged my service. Dad made some stupid joke about me just putting band-aids on people. Ryan was working at the local gym, apparently building a real future. And Mom? She'd change the subject whenever I started talking about the war, as if my 4 years of service was some embarrassing phase. like Ryan's blue hair. But there was one light in the darkness. Grandma! She'd always seen through their bullshit. She was the only one who ever really saw me. She came to my academic awards ceremonies when my parents were at Ryan's baseball practice. She'd slip me 20s for books and tell me how proud she was. When she died during my second deployment, I couldn't even get leave for the funeral. I was stuck in the middle of nowhere, patching up broken bodies while my grandma was being laid to rest. The guilt gnawed at me. I hadn't been there for her, the one person who had always been there for me. Then came the trust fund, $140,000. It wasn't life-changing, but it was enough. A down payment on a small house, seed money to start a business. Grandma had left it specifically for me, with clear instructions that it was intended to help me establish a life and career of my choosing. She knew I'd need it, a buffer against their suffocating influence. Finally, something that was mine, something they couldn't touch. I used my VA benefits to enroll in business school. I had this dream of opening a gym for veterans, a place where guys could heal, physically and mentally, a place where they wouldn't be judged, where they could find camaraderie and purpose, a place where they wouldn't feel so damn alone. And then I met her, Mia. Dark hair, emerald eyes, and a mind that could dissect complex medical concepts with effortless grace. She was studying physical therapy, interning at the VA hospital. I met her during a checkup for my knee. She had this way of explaining things, of making you feel smart, not stupid. And her hands, gentle but confident, guiding my movements during the exercises. I deliberately messed up sometimes, just to feel her touch. We clicked, instantly. Started dating, and within 8 months, we moved in together. A small, 2-bedroom apartment near campus. It wasn't much, but it was ours. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was building something real, something that was mine. Mia didn't compare me to anyone else. She listened when I talked about the military, didn't change the subject or get that uncomfortable. Look my parents always had. She asked thoughtful questions, wanted to know about the good parts, the hard parts. I even introduced her to my family. A rare occurrence. My parents seemed to like her, though Mom couldn't resist her passive-aggressive digs. Oh, you're a physical therapist? That's nice. Ryan's girlfriend is finishing medical school, you know. She wasn't. She was a part-time receptionist at a dermatologist's office, who'd mentioned maybe applying to nursing school someday. And Ryan, that prick, he was extra friendly with Mia. Too friendly. Looking back, it was obvious. At family dinners, he'd always managed to sit next to her, find reasons to touch her arm while talking, bring up clients from the gym he helped recover from injuries, steering the conversation toward physical therapy. I thought he was just trying to impress her, show off what a great guy he was. Turns out I was right about the showing off part, but wrong about everything else. When Mia and I moved in together, Ryan suddenly became weirdly interested in hanging out at our place. He'd stop by unannounced, always when I mentioned I had late classes or was putting in extra hours at the gym where I was working. He'd bring beer or takeout, saying he just wanted to check on the new place or was in the neighborhood. I was actually grateful at first. Thought maybe he was making an effort to be a better brother, to support this new chapter in my life. Grateful? Christ, I was so naive. I was planning to propose to Mia. I had the ring. Nothing fancy. Just a simple sapphire instead of a diamond because she once mentioned she loved the color. We were saving up for a small house, a modest 3-bedroom in a decent neighborhood. It would be ours, somewhere to build a life together, maybe start a family. Eventually, I was working as a manager at the gym while finishing my business degree. Things were finally coming together. Then came that Tuesday. My last client canceled, so I got off work early and decided to surprise Mia at our apartment. Picked up some takeout from that Thai place she loved, and a bottle of wine. I thought we could have a nice night in. Maybe I'd even propose if the moment felt right. I had the ring in my pocket, the sapphire warm against my thigh. When I pulled into the parking lot of our complex, I saw Ryan's obnoxious lifted Jeep, the one my parents helped him buy while I was dodging bullets overseas. It was hard to miss, with its stupid custom paint job and oversized tires that he definitely didn't need for driving exclusively on suburban roads. For a second, I figured maybe he was just dropping something off. Mia and I had been talking about hosting a family dinner that weekend. Maybe he was being helpful, for once in his goddamn life. As I walked up the stairs to our second-floor apartment, I heard it. Mia's laugh. Then Ryan's voice, low, saying something I couldn't make out. Then silence. There's this moment, right before your life falls apart, where your brain tries to protect you. It comes up with all these innocent explanations, these alternate realities where what you're about to discover isn't happening. Maybe they're watching a movie. Maybe they're planning a surprise for you. Maybe it's something totally innocent, and you're being paranoid. Your brain will do anything to avoid processing what, deep down, you already know is true. I unlocked the door as quietly as I could. The takeout bag felt heavy in my hand. I remember thinking how stupid that detail was, focusing on the weight of some pad thai while my world was about to implode. I walked in and caught them on our couch, the couch I had saved up for 3 months to buy. They didn't even notice me at first. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion, except the car was my relationship, and the crash was my brother's dick inside my girlfriend. I don't remember dropping the food. I don't remember the exact words I shouted. But I do remember Ryan's face. Not even shocked, just annoyed at being interrupted. And Mia, scrambling to cover herself, tears already starting. Not tears of shame, I realized later, but tears of getting caught. How long? That's all I could manage to ask. Bro, calm down, Ryan said. Like I'd walked in on him eating my leftovers from the fridge, not defiling the woman I loved. He actually had the audacity to sound irritated, like I was overreacting to catching them. 8 months, Mia whispered. 8 months! Almost our entire relationship. While I was planning a future, buying furniture, looking at houses, picking out a goddamn engagement ring, they were laughing behind my back. Every time Ryan happened to stop by when I wasn't home, every time Mia's phone dinged with a text and she smiled to herself, every time she was too tired or not in the mood, it all suddenly made horrible, perfect sense. I lost it, grabbed Ryan by his throat, and threw him against the wall. He might have been the athletic one in my parents' eyes, but 4 years of military training and hauling wounded soldiers through mountains made me stronger than he'd ever be. I could have killed him right there. Part of me wanted to feel his windpipe collapse under my fingers, wanted to watch the smug drain from his face along with the oxygen. But I didn't. Instead, I just told them both to get the hell out. Now. Not tomorrow. Not in an hour. Now. Mia tried to explain, crying about how it just happened and how confused she was. She said she loved me but had developed feelings for Ryan, said she didn't know how to tell me, didn't want to hurt me. The absolute irony of it. Ryan just collected his clothes and left. No apology, no explanation, nothing. Just zipped up his pants and walked out like this was a minor inconvenience in his day. The last thing he said was, "I'll call you later," to her. Not to me! Like they had plans to discuss this. Strategies to manage the fallout of getting caught. Probably they did. I spent that night destroying everything in the apartment that reminded me of either of them. The neighbor called the cops because of the noise. 2 officers showed up, took one look at the state of the place and my bleeding hands, and asked if I was a veteran. When I said yes, one of them, an older guy who mentioned he'd done a tour in Iraq, just nodded. He didn't write me up, just gave me a card for the VA crisis line and told me to get some help before I did something I'd regret. Decent guy. I still have that card somewhere. The next day, I got a call from my mother, not to check if I was okay, not to apologize for raising such a backstabbing piece of shit. No. She called to tell me I needed to calm down and be reasonable. Ryan and Mia are very upset about how you reacted, she said, like I was the one who had done something wrong, like I was the villain in this twisted story. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you serious right now? He fucked my girlfriend for 8 months in my apartment, behind my back, and I'm the one who needs to calm down? These things happen, Jason. Adults handle them maturely. Ryan says it wasn't planned, that they developed feelings for each other. You can't help who you fall in love with. I wanted to vomit. Love? You're calling what they did love? They fucked behind my back for months, in my bed, on my couch. That's not love, Mom. That's betrayal. Well, they're together now, and you're going to have to accept that. We're still family, and I expect you to behave civilly at dinner this Sunday. I laughed so hard. I started coughing. You expect me to sit across a dinner table from them? Are you out of your mind? Don't use that language with me, young man. Your father and I raised you better than that. Apparently, you didn't raise Ryan any better. She gasped, like I'd slapped her. Ryan has always been sensitive, you know that. He feels terrible about hurting you, but he can't help how he feels. Mia is special to him. That's when it clicked. They weren't just excusing what Ryan did. They were actively supporting it. In their warped minds, Ryan's happiness mattered more than my pain, more than basic human decency. And what about how I feel? I asked, my voice dangerously calm now. What about the fact that I was going to propose to her? That I thought she was the one? There was a pause. You were going to propose? Well, sweetheart, maybe this is for the best then. Before you made a commitment you'd regret. Mia clearly wasn't the right one for you. If she could develop feelings for Ryan so easily. The mental gymnastics were Olympic level. Somehow, in her twisted logic, Mia cheating with Ryan wasn't a reflection on them being terrible people, but on me for picking the wrong girlfriend. Do not come to dinner, she continued, not with that attitude. When you're ready to be an adult about this, we'll welcome you back. I hung up and blocked her number. The next few days were a blur of rage and betrayal. I got texts from my father saying I was tearing the family apart with my overreaction. Ryan had the balls to text that he hoped we could still be brothers because family is forever. Mia sent a 4-page email about how sorry she was and how complicated emotions can be and how she never meant to hurt me. I deleted all of it without finishing reading. I moved out of the apartment that weekend. Couldn't stand being in the space they had desecrated. Every time I looked at the couch, I saw them. Every time I walked into the bedroom, I wondered if they'd been there too. I broke the lease, forfeited my security deposit, and found a cheap studio across town. Threw myself into work and school, trying to numb the pain with exhaustion. My friends from the military checked in on me. A couple of them offered to talk some sense into Ryan, which was their way of offering to beat the shit out of him. I appreciated the loyalty but turned them down. Violence wouldn't fix anything. Besides, I was saving all my rage for something better than a momentary satisfaction. 3 weeks later, I got an email from my bank. The trust fund my grandmother had left me, the one that was in a joint account with my parents until I turned 30, had been emptied. All $140,000 gone. I called the bank in a panic, only to be told that my father, as co-trustee, had withdrawn the funds. It was legal. The trust had a provision allowing the co-trustee to access the funds for family emergencies or significant investments. It was supposed to be a safeguard in case I got into trouble and needed help before I turned 30. Instead, it had become the perfect loophole for my father to rob me. I drove to my parents' house that night, adrenaline and rage pumping through my veins. When I pulled up, I saw Ryan's Jeep in the driveway, next to a new Honda CR-V I didn't recognize. The porch light was on, and I could see movement through the living room windows. They were having some kind of gathering. Of course, they were. Life goes on for them, even as they were burning mine to the ground. I pounded on the door until my dad opened it, looking annoyed rather than guilty. He was still in his work clothes, tie loosened but not removed. always keeping up appearances. "Where's my money?" I demanded, pushing past him into the house. "Lower your voice," he hissed. "We have guests." In the living room sat my mom, Ryan, Mia, and an older couple I didn't recognize, who I assumed were Mia's parents. They were drinking champagne and looking at what appeared to be house listings spread across the coffee table. A celebration. While I was living in a shitty studio, sleeping on an air mattress because I'd left most of my furniture behind, they were celebrating. "What the hell is this?" I asked, gesturing at the cozy little gathering. "Language," my mother snapped, as if that was the biggest problem in the room. Always worried about appearances, about what others might think, never about what was right. "Jason," my dad said, trying to sound authoritative, "this isn't the time or place for your dramatics." "My dramatics? You stole $140,000 from me? Money Grandma left me, and I'm being dramatic?" I looked around the room. Does everyone here know what's going on? Do Mia's parents know that she was cheating on me with my brother for 8 months? Do they know that you're using my inheritance to fund this little love nest for the happy couple? Mia's parents looked uncomfortable, but Ryan just put his arm around Mia, who couldn't even look me in the eye. She was wearing a small diamond ring on her left hand that definitely hadn't been there 3 weeks ago. "We didn't steal anything," my father said, his voice cold. "That money was in a trust that I co-managed. I made an executive decision to reallocate it for a family investment." "A family investment?" I repeated. "What investment? That is enough," my father snapped, his face reddening. "I will not have this kind of language and behavior in my house. The decision has been made. The money is being put to good use for the future of this family." My mother smiled that fake smile she uses at PTA meetings, the one that never reaches her eyes. "Ryan and Mia are getting married, isn't that wonderful? And they found the perfect starter home. Your father and I are helping them with the down payment as our wedding gift." I looked at the papers on the coffee table. Sure enough, it was a contract for a house, a $400,000 house in the nice part of town, and there, on the financing page, was a down payment amount of $120,000. They had taken my trust fund to buy my cheating brother and ex-girlfriend a house. Not just any house, but a house nicer than I would have been able to afford for myself. A house that should have been my future, my new start. "You've got to be kidding me," I said, my voice deadly calm despite the hurricane raging inside me. That dangerous calm was back. The one that comes when you're so angry that your emotions loop all the way back around to a cold, calculating rage. Ryan finally spoke up. "Look, Jace, I know this is awkward, but..." "Awkward? You fuck my girlfriend, steal my inheritance, and you think this is awkward?" I looked at Mia. "And you! You're actually going through with this? You're going to live in a house bought with money that was meant for me? Money from my grandmother who never even met you? How do you sleep at night?" "Nobody stole anything," my father interrupted. "That money was always meant to help both our sons start their lives. Ryan and Mia are starting a family." "A family?" I looked at Mia. "You're pregnant?" She nodded, tears in her eyes. 3 months. The math wasn't hard to do. She'd been cheating on me with Ryan for 8 months. She was 3 months pregnant. There was a good chance she had been sleeping with both of us when she got pregnant. The thought made me physically ill. "Is it even his?" I asked, the words out before I could stop them. The slap came out of nowhere. My mother, her face contorted with rage. "How dare you? After everything we've done for you. Ryan and Mia are in love. They're having a baby, and they need a stable home. What were you going to do with that money? Waste it on some gym for broken soldiers?" I touched my cheek where she'd slapped me. Oddly calm now. That slap crystallized everything for me. The years of favoritism, the constant dismissal of my achievements, the utter lack of respect for my service, for my sacrifices, for my very existence. "You know what? You deserve each other. All of you." "I'm done." "Jason," my father started, his voice stern. "You're being unreasonable." "I'm being unreasonable?" You stole my inheritance to buy a house for the brother who fucked my girlfriend behind my back? Tell me, Dad, what part of that is reasonable? We're family, he said, as if that explained everything. Family sticks together. Family supports each other through tough times. Family doesn't do what you did, I said. Not real family. I turned to leave, but Ryan grabbed my arm. Bro, come on, don't be like this. It's not like you and Mia were married or anything. I looked at his hand on my arm, then at his face. That smug face that had gotten everything it wanted its entire life. The golden child. The favorite. The one who could do no wrong, even when he was very clearly in the wrong. Touch me again, I said quietly, and I'll break every finger you use to make a living. He dropped his hand, stepping back. For the first time, I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. Good. Let him be afraid. Let him wonder just how much of me had changed during those years in Afghanistan, what I was capable of now. You're not welcome here, until you can be civil, my mother called after me as I walked out. Until you can be happy for your brother's blessings. I turned at the doorway. Then, I guess I'm never coming back. The day after the confrontation, I withdrew from my classes, broke my lease, and re-enlisted. Not the smartest decision emotionally, but I needed to get as far away from that town as possible. I went back to school in a different state, finished my business degree, then got a master's in health administration. Met a guy in one of my classes named Marcus, who had the same idea I did, a wellness center focused on veterans. He'd been a logistics officer, had the business experience I lacked. I had the medical background and military connections he needed. Plus, he was a Black guy who'd grown up in foster care and had his own experience with family disappointment. He got it when I told him my history. No judgment, just understanding. We opened the first center 2 years after I graduated. A gym, physical therapy clinic, and counseling center, all in one, designed specifically for vets transitioning back to civilian life. We hired staff who understood military culture, who wouldn't get weirded out by dark humor or freeze when someone had a flashback. We kept prices low by operating as a nonprofit and securing grants for veterans who couldn't afford care. It took off faster than we expected. Within 3 years, we had 4 locations across the state, and were eyeing national expansion. Turned out, there was a massive need for a place where veterans could go and not have to explain themselves, not have to soften their experiences or pretend they hadn't seen the things they'd seen. A place built by people who understood. I met Sarah at a fundraiser for veteran suicide prevention. She was a trauma psychologist who specialized in PTSD. Smart, compassionate, and beautiful, with none of Mia's selfishness. Her father had been a Vietnam vet who struggled with PTSD his whole life, which had inspired her career choice. She got it. She understood the military mindset without romanticizing it or being intimidated by it. We took things slow. Both of us had baggage to work through. But after a year, I knew she was the one. We moved in together, and I proposed 6 months later. No drama, no betrayal. Just 2 people who respected and loved each other building a life together. The proposal was simple. We were hiking, reached a viewpoint overlooking the city. I told her that for the first time since I could remember, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be, with exactly who I was supposed to be with. Got down on one knee, pulled out a ring. Sapphire, not diamond, because she once mentioned loving the color. She cried, said yes. I actually cried too, which surprised both of us. We bought a house together. Nothing extravagant, but comfortable. 3 bedrooms, nice yard, enough space to grow into. I paid for it with money I'd earned, not stolen. Every mortgage payment was a reminder that I had built this life from scratch, on my terms, without any help from the people who should have supported me the most. I had done it, built myself a life from scratch, surrounded by people who cared about me for who I was, not what I could do for them. I had purpose, success, love, everything my family had tried to take from me. I never checked up on them, never looked at Ryan or Mia's social media, never drove by the house they bought with my stolen future. As far as I was concerned, they didn't exist. I had no family, except the one I was building for myself, Sarah, our friends, the veterans we helped every day, until the day my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize, and my mother's voice came through the speaker. Jason? Jason, please don't hang up. Her voice sounded older, rougher than I remembered. I should have hung up immediately, but curiosity kept me on the line. That and a certain satisfaction in knowing she was the one reaching out, not the other way around. What do you want? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. It's so good to hear your voice. We've missed you so much. Cut the crap, Mom. What do you want? She sighed, dropping the fake warmth. We need your help. The family is in trouble. I don't have a family, I replied coldly. Please, just listen. Things have been difficult. Your father lost his job 3 years ago. The bank downsized, and at his age, he couldn't find another position. We've been living on his pension, but it's not enough. Sounds like a personal problem. Jason, please. Ryan and Mia, they're struggling too. The house. She stopped herself, probably realizing mentioning the house they bought with my money wasn't the best strategy. The house you bought them with my trust fund, I finished for her. It's more complicated than that. Ryan got injured. He can't work as a trainer anymore. Tore his rotator cuff, needed surgery, developed a pain pill problem. He's been in and out of rehab twice. I almost laughed at the irony. The golden child, the athletic one, sidelined by a sports injury, while the damaged veteran was building a successful business. They have 3 kids now, she continued, and Mia had to quit her job to take care of them and Ryan. They're behind on their mortgage, and this concerns me. How exactly? I asked, still typing an email. Your father and I have been helping them as much as we can, but we're stretched thin too. The medical bills, the rehab costs, it's been a nightmare. And now the bank is threatening foreclosure on their house. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Let me get this straight. You want me to help the people who betrayed me, stole from me, and kicked me out of the family? Why would I do that? Because we're blood, she said, as if that meant anything after what they'd done. Because, despite everything, we're still your family. Family? The first repeated. You know, I've learned a lot about family in the last 5 years. Real family has your back. Real family respects you. Real family doesn't steal your inheritance to give to the brother who fucked your girlfriend. We made mistakes, she admitted. Her voice cracked, and for a second, I almost felt something. A tiny flicker of the son who had once desperately wanted his mother's approval. I squashed it immediately. Terrible mistakes. But we're desperate, Jason. We could lose everything. Like I lost everything? The girlfriend, the trust fund, the family support. That kind of lose everything? She started crying then. Big, dramatic sobs that might have moved me once upon a time. The bank is foreclosing on their house. They're moving in with us, but we can barely pay our own bills. Your father's health isn't good. He had a minor heart attack last year, and our insurance doesn't cover all his medications. We're drowning. And what exactly do you expect me to do about it? We've seen the articles about your business, she said. The wellness centers for veterans. You're successful now. We're so proud of what you've accomplished. Don't, I cut her off. Don't pretend you had anything to do with my success. You actively tried to prevent it. You took money that was meant to help me start my life and gave it to Ryan. You don't get to be proud now that I've succeeded despite you, not because of you. You're right. You're absolutely right. We were wrong, and we've paid for it every day since you left. Please, Jason, if not for us, then for your nieces and nephews. They're innocent in all this. That gave me pause. The kids were innocent. It was true. Just like I had been innocent when my parents played favorites and made me feel worthless compared to Ryan. But they weren't my responsibility. Their parents had made their choices. Here's what's going to happen, I said finally. I'm going to hang up. You're not going to call me again. You made your choice 5 years ago, and now you're living with the consequences. That's how life works. Jason, please. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up, my hand shaking slightly. Sarah found me on the balcony of our house that evening. Everything okay? She asked, wrapping her arms around me from behind. Her presence was instantly calming, grounding me back in the reality of the life we'd built together. My mother called, I said. They're in financial trouble, want me to bail them out. Sarah knew the whole story. I'd told her everything early in our relationship, wanting complete honesty between us. She didn't judge me for cutting them off, never pushed me to reconcile for the sake of family. What are you thinking? She asked. That karma's a bitch, I said, and that I don't owe them anything. She nodded, not arguing either way. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. That night, I got a text from Ryan's number. Mom told me she called you. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. But please, if not for me, then for my kids. They don't deserve to suffer because of my mistakes. I'm begging you, brother. Brother. The word felt hollow now, stripped of all meaning. I didn't respond, but I couldn't sleep that night. Not because I felt guilty. I'd long ago come to terms with cutting off my toxic family, but because of those kids, 3 innocent children who didn't ask to be born to selfish, entitled parents. 3 kids who were about to learn the hard way that actions have consequences. I thought about the boy I'd been, always trying to earn love that was freely given to my brother, always working twice as hard for half the recognition. I didn't want that for any child. 2 weeks after my mother's call, I received an email from my father. It was long, detailed, and pathetic. A full accounting of their financial situation, medical bills, the pending foreclosure on Ryan and Mia's house. Attached were photos of the kids. 3 young children, 2 boys and a girl, who had my grandmother's eyes and Ryan's smile. It was a masterful guilt trip. I had to give him that. The desperate plea of a man who had run out of options but still couldn't bring himself to actually apologize for what they'd done. He went on about family legacy and blood being thicker than water, about how much they regretted the misunderstandings of the past. Misunderstandings like stealing $140,000 from me was just a simple miscommunication, like they hadn't deliberately chosen Ryan over me at every turn. The email ended with, "We're not asking for a handout, son, just a chance to make things right, to be a family again. The children ask about their Uncle Jason sometimes. What should we tell them?" I read it once, then deleted it without responding. The next day, I got a text from Ryan repeating the same points. I deleted it. Then Mia tried a long, tearful voicemail about how sorry she was, how she'd made the biggest mistake of her life, how the kids were innocent and needed help. I deleted it. My mother called 17 times over the next week. My father sent 3 more emails. I blocked them all. Are you sure about this? Sarah asked one night as we sat on our deck watching the sunset. I'll support whatever you decide, but I want to make sure you're at peace with it. I thought about it for a moment. You know what I realized? They're not reaching out because they regret what they did. They're reaching out because they need something from me. If they were doing fine financially, I'd still be dead to them. And the kids? Not my responsibility, I said firmly. Harsh as it sounds, Ryan and Mia made their choices. Now they get to live with the consequences. 6 months later, I saw an article in my hometown's online newspaper. The house, my house, the one bought with my stolen trust fund, had been foreclosed on and sold at auction. My parents had filed for bankruptcy. Ryan and Mia had moved out of state to live with her parents. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret, no guilt. Just a peaceful certainty that justice had finally been served. You know what the funny thing is? I told Sarah that night. They spent my entire life making me feel like I wasn't good enough, like I needed them more than they needed me. Now look how things turned out. She smiled and squeezed my hand. The best revenge really is living well. I nodded, and letting karma do the rest. Sometimes silence is the loudest response you can give. Sometimes walking away is the strongest thing you can do. I haven't heard from any of them in over a year now, and I don't expect to. Whatever happened to them after the foreclosure isn't my concern. I built my life without them, and they'll have to rebuild theirs without me. That's how my family learned that karma's not just a bitch. She's patient. She has a long memory. And sometimes, she takes everything you thought you were entitled to